Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the first Star Wars created in 1977. There will be spoilers. Let's go. Star Wars was released in 1977, directed by George Lucas, and the universe was created by George Lucas, and for the first set, it was pretty good. As this was directed by George Lucas, what does a story need? It needs characters, and for characters, you need actors. So, these characters were played by Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Peter Mayhew, and the voice of Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. Kenny Baker, sometimes inside of the R2-D2. Alec Guinness as Sir Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi. Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. So, let's get into the troubling parts of reviewing Episode 4. There are two editions here. We have the 2011 Remastered Edition on Blu-ray, which is the only Blu-ray version you can get. And then there's the theatrical version, which was out in 1977. Now let's briefly talk about the changes. So I think the biggest change was Greedo shooting first, and initially, we don't need that, no.
Well, the two things that stand out to me were the whole scene with Han Solo at the Millennium Falcon that was added in the special editions, which in and of itself helped the story. It explained a bit of the story and made Han Solo's predicament a little bit more real to me about, oh my gosh, there is somebody who's after him, if he doesn't get paid. The other change, though, the other really notorious change was, you're right, where Greedo has been redone in the new edition to shoot first, when in reality it was Han Solo who plugged him before he got a chance. And not to get into it too much, but my beef with Lucas doing that is he was essentially changing who Han Solo was as a character. And he's now not the smuggler who has to play dirty in order to survive in a dirty world. Now he's just the guy who shot first after the bad guy shot. So I really disagree with that. That changes the whole tone and character of Han Solo. So at any rate, basically what we're saying is that we're reviewing the theatrical release, which we watched. The only DVD release of the theatrical movies was actually a rip of the Laserdisc releases. So it's pretty terrible quality, but it was still watchable, and I think it was important that we let you guys know which one we're actually reviewing.
And some changes that were made which sort of make a few more sense. They added a few more stormtroopers in Tatooine, where the stormtroopers like, "Look, sir, droids!" And then a few extra shots at Mos Eisley with to make it look fuller, and a few extra shots here and there. But overall, no changes need to be made. Some changes made it look fuller, but overall, that's what there is.
Those are more cosmetic changes there, which really weren't important to the story development itself. Those first two changes that I described, those did actually alter our perception of the story.
Speaking of story, what a story needs is characters. And the characters in this movie, there are the three main characters, well, 5, 6, I guess, because you have the 2 droids, you have our 3 main heroes, and you have the Wookiee. Oh, and then there's the antagonist, which is probably one of the most famous antagonists of all time. So let's get into Luke Skywalker. They developed him. He was a boy who he wanted to get off this desert planet, move away from his aunt and uncle, and go out, fly in space. And he was stuck on this planet as a moisture farmer when the unexpected happened. So, how in what ways did they develop Luke right? How did they do it so right?
Well, the first thing they did right was by developing the antagonist right away, which was more generically the Empire, more specifically Darth Vader, but he's not really crystallized as much until towards the end of the movie. But a really good job of introducing who the bad guy was, fighting the little good guy, which was the Rebel Alliance, And then so Luke, you know, as they introduced him as just kind of a simple everyman, you know, just a normal person who's working hard on the farm, wants a better life for himself, dreams of, you know, more adventure and things like that. And yes, the unexpected happens, and he gets his wish, even though there's a price to be paid, like so many things in life.
Mm-hmm. But I was going to go to Tashi Station to pick up power converters. You can waste time with your friends later.
That's right.
And then Han Solo, the mysterious smuggler, which will have his own movie next year in 2018, which nobody asked for, but it might be good. But let's get into Han Solo right now. He is a friend to a Wookiee, which we don't know anything about right now either. There's a lot of mystery going along in this movie. So Chewbacca, the Wookiee, and Han Solo, the smuggler, are both partners
yeah.
in a smuggling business.
And all we know is that they're smugglers initially, right? And to our main characters, they're just a way off Tatooine after the Empire kills Luke's family
and these characters translate into people. People envision themselves as like a Han Solo or a Luke Skywalker. And then we get into Carrie Fisher's character of Princess Leia. We know that she's royalty. She wants peace because her planet, Alderaan, has no weapons. And she's the head of the Rebel Alliance, as it were. She is very important, but not a whole lot else is known about her until later movies.
Sure. I mean, this is a movie that doesn't really develop a lot of deep characters, but the character development that's there is pretty good. I think, to me, the characters feel pretty authentic. And interestingly enough, even though Luke dreamed of another life, his initial reticence, I kind of understood. A lot of people, when they're presented with the actual culmination or the opportunity to pursue their dreams, will initially kind of balk at it. And I thought that was a very natural and realistic portrayal as a character there. So I think that was a real big help to the story.
And let's get into the old wise Jedi, played by Sir Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi. So this is a mysterious character because in their dialogue scene, Luke to Obi-Wan, we hear about the Clone Wars, which at this time we know nothing about. We hear about how all the Jedi, how he taught Anakin, and we learn a little bit about Vader here, but it's a mysterious past, very mysterious. And he's obviously not what he used to be in fighting, because the fight scene is pretty slow, but it's a good fight scene, kind of. And Obi-Wan's a cool character. At this time, we wish we could have seen him in his prime, which eventually we do get to see. Let's get to the villain, Darth Vader, who is, we don't know anything about him. Nothing at all. We know he serves somebody, kind of, at this point. We know that he is very bad. He uses the dark side, which the Force is also pretty unknown at this point. And he is intimidating. He is tall. He has a really cool voice. He has a red lightsaber, and he's not afraid to choke people.
That's right. Choke him out without even touching him. Darth Vader is a very visceral and imposing villain. Probably, like you say, one of the most iconic villains ever made in film. And really an archetype for a lot of villains to follow after that.
Find the plans. Bring me the prisoners. I want them alive. And he does more talking in this movie than probably any other Star Wars movie. Maybe Episode 6. But, he's a good character. And let's get into something that makes this movie feel real. The effects. Now, there is CGI, but very little of it. And with the little that there is, how do you feel that it's handled?
Well, actually, in the original theatrical release, there was no CGI, I suppose, unless you count some of the wireframe displays that were computer generated, but that's really it. So as far as the effects of space and the ships, all of that was done with either matte paintings or stop motion photography or models, cameras, things like that. You know, anybody who's watched the Star Wars trilogy has probably watched some of the bonus features released on DVD where they show what they did.
which is very cool.
Yeah, the special effects in here are literally groundbreaking.
For the time.
Not so much in the techniques they used, because they weren't using any new techniques. To me, it was groundbreaking in how real and visceral it looked. This was a very well-realized sci-fi world to me. This was a gritty, realistic, hard-nosed environment. It wasn't some shiny utopia, or a lot of sci-fi movies before just used really outlandish designs to try to set themselves apart from normal everyday life. Star Wars was really the first film that looked about as everyday as you possibly can in a sci-fi movie, and it was just really real. I mean, it really felt like you were really there. It was a real world. So I'm to this day, I'm really impressed by it, and I think it holds up really well even 40 years later.
And something that starts off the movie, the classic pan down, you have the tiny cruiser that Leia is in, and like when that goes through, that looks pretty big, but then we have the huge Star Destroyer. Like, wow, that's big, but then it keeps going. And you get the sense of size and
they sure established, sure established who the little guy is and who the big guy is. And as humans, we naturally gravitate towards the big, more powerful guy being the evil guy. It was that first opening scene, and with the invasion of the ship, and then what happened afterwards, it was very clear who was the good guy and who was the bad guy, which we've mentioned before, which the prequel movies really had a hard time establishing, and in a way never really did.
And besides the acting conveying emotion, something that needs to convey the emotion is the score, and this is one of the most iconic scores of all time, this Star Wars score, with multiple different ones. You know, you have the classic Star Wars score, and then you have the Imperial March and all the other ones, and it's just so good by John Williams, who to this day continues to work on Star Wars movies and a few other films. But this marks 40 years of Star Wars. Can you believe that? Here in 2017, 40 years of Star Wars. Guys, this is our 4th review in our Star Wars series leading up to The Last Jedi this December. We hope you enjoy these reviews. Stay tuned every month. And real quick, before we get into our grades, I want to ask you guys a question that you can answer in the comments down below. When you first saw Mos Eisley Cantina and all those different races of aliens, what was your reaction the first time you saw it? If you can remember, and every time you see it nowadays, how do you feel about it?
I think this is probably one of the greatest examples of space opera that I've ever seen. Did I say space opera? Space opera that I've ever seen. A really excellent movie.
For a long time, I was, my feeling of this movie, it was a little boring to me, but I can appreciate it more now. It's still not my favorite Star Wars movie, but they continue to grow each one, and for me, I continue to enjoy each one a little bit more than the past one, kind of like Fast and Furious. But if some of you find this movie a little boring, maybe a little later you'll find it more exciting. It's not the most exciting Star Wars movie, but it's a good Star Wars movie to get the series going. My name is Winter Lava, and I'm going to give Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, a B+.
Well, once again, we have differing opinions on this. As I've said before, it's probably one of the greatest space operas ever. And the story was great. The pacing was beautiful. I didn't think it was boring at all, mainly because the characters were interesting right off the bat, which, again, the first prequel movie, really didn't have. Now, this isn't the best of the Star Wars movies technically. I think either 5 or 6 could be said to be that. Nevertheless, I still think what a great kickoff to the series. I'm going to give this an A-, because I do think there's a little bit of improvement that happened in a couple of other movies. But still, a great first effort. The magic that George Lucas captured, he never really recaptured, so it's very unique and singular in that respect.
And guys, remember, you leave likes, subscribe, comment, share, and let's see if we can hit 6 likes. And our Instagram link in the description below. You guys know the drill. My name is Winter Lava.
And I'm Spritz Bammy.
And always believe in yourselves. May the force be with you always. Goodbye.
Bye,